Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our third Ask a Pro webinar. The goal we have with the Ask a Pro series is to give entrepreneurs the kind of practical, in-the-trenches information on how to get things done to help you save time and money, which I know are both in short supply. So today we've got a topic that needs to get covered a lot more often. You hardly ever see it. How to get to your customers. After all, your customers are your most important investors. If you can't get people to invest in your products, then you don't have a company. About me, my name is Linda Plano and I am a pitch coach. That means I have the best job in the world. I get to work with smart, creative, and passionate people just like you and help you make your dreams come true. This webinar series was catalyzed by the mentees, some of whom are on this very call, some of the mentees of the spring 2015 cohort of the MIT Enterprise Forum MentorSmart program. As the co-chair, I asked them what topics would be most important for them to have covered in a webinar series, and new business development was one of the top 4. So if you are interested in having 2 mentors matched to you to help you guide your progress for an entire year, we have the fall 2015 cohort is just closing next week, so make sure that you apply. Use the bit.ly link there, MentorSmart Info, and we really would love to have you join us. We're open to any early stage tech company. And of course, as always, special thanks to the Enterprise Forum's Katja Wald and Amy Goggins for all of their support for the program. Oh, and I also wanted to just make a mention of our next webinar in the series. So number 4, she was supposed to be on the 8th, but had a conflict, so the next one isn't for a whole month. Thursday, the 22nd of October, what not to patent, how to leverage time with your attorney. In other words, how to save money when you work with your attorney. And special thanks to Enterprise Forum sponsors Hamilton, Brooks, Smith, Reynolds. Finally, okay, the program. Now, let's get to the meat of this. It is my very great pleasure to introduce you to my friend and former colleague, Robert Belt. I met Robert in the 90s when I was more of a scientist than a business person and trying to commercialize diamond thin films. My boss brought in Robert as a consultant, and he and I went all over the country. And you know what? He really could get us in anywhere, including some of the biggest multinational corporations in our business. When the mentees asked for a webinar on business development last spring, I immediately thought of Robert. Now, he's got a wealth of experience in a whole range of biz dev activities, but today we're going to focus on getting in front of customers. As you can see from the information on this slide, Robert has an amazing international experience across a broad range of consumer and other industries. But you have his bio in your download, so I'll let you read that on your own. And Robert, I will just say, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself while I get the presentation loaded.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Linda. I appreciate everyone that's on the webinar. My background is I have been doing business development as a consultant on my own for over 20 years, and I did it for probably 10 years before that with specific companies. So for those of you that are being mentored by Linda, you're in a very good spot. Linda has mentored over 600 companies as far as I know, and she's one of those unique individuals that has bridged the science engineering side of life and the sales side of life, being able to bring them together. So you're in good hands. But my background is, again, business development, which means I end up having to try to find the correct person many times, sometimes with a company name they may know, and many times with a company that they've never heard of and that may be in a startup phase. I've worked with companies all over, from multinational corporations to startups, even some startups in kind of the napkin stage where it's just written down on a napkin and that's the business plan and you start going after it. Some of the products that I've introduced over the years on a consumer side that you might know, I helped introduce that thing on the left was called a car phone, which was a cellular phone. And I helped introduce that in Phoenix many years ago. The pitch was pretty easy. Give me $4,000 and we'll put this in your car. In 6 months, it will work. So that was an interesting product. Helped roll out that product in Phoenix, as I said, many years ago. The next item there is a cigarette lighter adapter. Company I was working with developed the first cigarette lighter adapter that was able to power a phone and charge a battery at the same time. We ended up then manufacturing it, private labeling it for basically every portable cell phone manufacturer that was out there at the time, and was very successful in doing that. To the right of that is the barcode. I helped introduce the barcode scanning capability for cellular phones. This is a quick read barcode by ScanBuy, which was the company I was working for at the time. This was just when cell phones were coming out with megapixel cameras that had high enough resolution that you could actually decode barcodes. Under that is a Motorola MicroTac phone. What I helped introduce there is not the phone itself, but the lamp that was under the keypad. It was called an electroluminescent lamp. That's what allowed the phone to be so small. To the right of that is something that's very well known now. It's called the Cop Cam, and helped introduce that many, many years ago. And we were very successful with that. In fact, we ended up doing 33 trials on that. We had actually 3 mentions in the Tonight Show monologue. We had 48 national TV mentions in about 2 days. We were in the New York Times Magazine. We were in the Hong Kong Times, the London Times. We were on PBS Interview, several things. So those are some of the products you might have heard of or be aware of that I helped introduce to the market. So I think we are ready for the next slide, Linda. The categories I'm going to be talking about today, it's basically a presentation is basically broken up into 3 areas. Preparation, which to me is 90% of what you need to do. Cold calling and follow-up. Those 3 categories we'll be looking at. Much of what I'm going to be looking at today will probably be more slanted towards reaching people by phone, because I'm involved in international business development. So showing up at people's offices, sending snail mail are maybe not as good of options for me. Emails are also a way to contact people. You can contact people and meet them, cold call, or meet them at conventions or industry associations, or even at presentations that they're doing. But again, since much of what I do is international business development, I will be looking more at the phone. And a lot of this is from the U.S. perspective. Those of you that are on the phone from countries outside the U.S. may have to adapt what I'm saying just a little bit. I will tell you that I put a lot more text on many of these slides than I normally do, simply because I know many of you may be multitasking, doing 3 things at the same time, and maybe want to go back and look at something. So we've gone on to the next one, which is preparation. As I said, that is what a lot of this has to do. If you do your preparation, getting to the right person is just requires a few tips and persistence. So I am ready for the next one, Linda. And I think the main thing I do before I start approaching people is get my attitude correct. These people are not walls that I have to hurdle. If there are gatekeepers or other people that I have to work with or work around or work through, they're not my enemy. They're not just cogs in a wheel with the important person behind them. These are all things that I think through before I really start. These people are important, building blocks, and they can be very helpful. I cannot tell you how many times an administrative assistant or a receptionist has given me information that's helpful to me by saying, Mr. Smith is out of town, he'll be back next Wednesday, or he has your note and he wanted to take it with him on the road to review it, and he will be getting back with you. They can tell you an awful lot, so I would not view them as hurdles. I try to build a relationship with those people, and I welcome meeting them. I don't see them as roadblocks that are in my way that I have to bulldoze through. I believe that they are important. And it's also very important to meet that staff and take note of their names. I can't believe how many times people call me Bob. And you could look right in my face and call me Bob, and I have no idea you're talking to me. I've been a Robert all my life. But there's also people like Jones and Joannes. If you don't get it right, you're really not doing any favor. Or if you're writing a text, Brian or Brian. There's a couple different ways to spell Brian. So get to know these little nuances, and they will not be impediments to you. It simply shows that you care, that you have the right attitude, that you have the right respect for these people. They're doing their job, maybe not doing it the way you would like them to do it, but they are doing their job, and therefore I would respect their time, I would respect their workload, I would respect how to spell their name and how to say their name. So I think I'm ready for the next one there, Linda. So do your homework. That is the most important thing in my mind, is that you determine these sorts of things. So as you're sitting in your office going, okay, I'm ready to start on this, what companies do you want to select? First of all, what industry? And then if you had in a perfect world, what would be the ideal companies? You need to start narrowing that down. Linda mentioned that we had worked together on a previous product. At that time, we sat down and looked at how many people would actually be interested in the product. If I remember right, there were about 20 companies in the entire world, and 19 of them had representation in North America. So those became our target companies. The challenge for me as a business development person was I could not tell the companies anything about the product. They had to be under a signed non-disclosure before I could even reveal what the product was. So I was selling them on my ability to know their business, my ability to find a product for them that was cutting edge, and it worked well. I think we got appointments with 19 out of the 20. And
It was amazing, and I have to because I always coach people these days that you should always be able to talk about your technology in a non-proprietary way to communicate your secret sauce. You have to have that in place. So I didn't know any better back then. Okay,
right.
just so we're clear on that.
Right.
Go ahead.
That is true. That is true. So yeah. And I am not a technical person, therefore I couldn't communicate it technically. I had to be able to take the technical things and distill it down to non-technical terms, non-proprietary information to get the meetings. So we were able to get those meetings, and that was what got us rolling. So title selection becomes very, very important. You have to know the industry you're going into and what the ideal person's title that you're looking for. And the titles change among industries. Head of engineering may be one thing, or there may be 6 heads of engineering or 6 VPs of engineering. You need to determine if it's a CTO you're looking for, if you're looking for a VP of business development, if you're looking for head of engineering. A recent example I had is I was trying to get into ESPN to make a presentation. And last December, I was able to contact the senior director of products at that time, and I caught him on his way out the door. This was by phone. Caught him on his way out the door. I was able to speak with him for a few minutes. He said, okay, I've got to run, but check back with me. Uh, Fast forward 6 months, I continued to try to call him. We could not hook up. Eventually, I decided, okay, well, I think I need to find another contact into the company, and was able to find another senior director of technology at that company that was actually under the CTO and make my presentation. So title selection is very important. If you pick the wrong title, you just pick another one. If the person says that is not my area of focus, then you pick another one, or you ask that person for a referral. If you've got them on the phone, you might as well say, well, who would review something like this? So again, then the person selection, once you get the titles, you select the proper person. Which one of the 3 VPs are you going to approach, or which one of the 3 engineers, which one of the 3 techs? Whatever you're looking for, you need to determine which one you're going to select. There is no secret sauce other than if you start looking at things like LinkedIn, it tells you what their area of focus is. And so if you're looking for somebody that's focused on broadcasting, that should show up somewhere in their LinkedIn presentation, their LinkedIn profile page. And so that can help you. It's a great assistance in picking the proper person to make your first pitch to. Phone numbers, or I'm sorry, mixers. Is another way to find the right target. A lot of local business groups or chambers of commerce do mixers, as well as meetups, which are throughout many of the major cities. You can find your meetups and hook up with them by whatever area of focus you choose. So
Yeah, yes, you can't you could go to 2 different events, networking events every night in Boston. So no excuse for
okay.
not taking advantage of that here.
Right, right. And that's, again, since I'm focused on international, they are less important to me. But if you're looking for local people, it's a great, great place to meet people. In terms of getting
Yes.
emails, yeah, well, that's fine. Emails, there's 100 places where you can get emails and phone numbers. Those are just a few of them. So, okay, we're on to the next one. So go-to sources, referrals is always the primary. When you're looking for, if you're trying to get into an ESPN, who do you know that's in the broadcast field? Who do you know that works at ESPN? Who do you know that's a vendor to ESPN? Whatever the case may be, uh, referrals are the greatest way, because the second you pick up the phone, the second that person picks up the phone, I'm sorry, you say, Fred Smith suggested I contact you, there's already a level of comfort there, and you've already broken down the first barrier. Or if you have to leave a message with one of the gatekeepers, uh, that's fine. That Fred Smith suggested I call you. That's a very good foot in the door and getting to the proper person, getting around the gatekeeper. LinkedIn, as I said, LinkedIn is the most phenomenal tool that I know of. Many people assume you have to subscribe to premium. I've been on LinkedIn for, I think, 7 or 8 years and have never subscribed to a premium service. Their free service does everything I need to do. It's also important to join groups. Groups give you access to certain people and that you can see what they do, how they do it, what company they do it for, if they used to work there or if they currently work there. Another thing that is very useful in LinkedIn is if you're going to a profile page and you're looking at Susie Smith, down on the right side of the page it said people also search these people, these other contacts. Besides Susie Smith, they search these, and a lot of times you can pick up names and titles from the right side of that page. So again, all very, very good information. Believe me, you used to have to scratch and claw to get some of this information that is now so readily available. Company websites many times will list the officers of a company. They will many times list VPs, list sales managers, whoever you're looking for sometimes can be found on a website, a company website. Also, company blogs are very useful to get names and positions. Also, to understand positions. If you're going to talk to that person, it certainly might be nice to know a little bit of how they think, what their hot buttons are, and you can certainly tailor your presentation accordingly.
Robert, do you
Yes.
ever use annual reports from these companies?
Annual reports are good too. A lot of what I've seen on annual reports are the highest of the officers. So if I'm looking for somebody maybe buried a little deeper in the corporation, uh, I, you know, it wouldn't work, but that's what I've seen. But yeah, annual reports are great. So press releases are very good also. Usually they will quote somebody that is over that area of responsibility, and so they're very good. The one thing to be aware of on press releases is usually it says for further information, contact. And if you look at the name or the email address of who you're supposed to contact, many times it's not anybody that's with the company, it's by an outside press group or an outside PR firm. I've not had a lot of luck going through outside PR firms, but sometimes they can make a referral to the proper person. It just depends. They many times become impenetrable. Certainly any of the social media that are out there, Twitter, Facebook, you can start pulling names, start finding information out from them, or Pinterest, Instagram, Vines. There's tons of those things out there that you can look at to try to gather names. Something that's often overlooked is a conference attendee list. If you can ever get your hands on one of these or a speakers list at a conference, to me these are gold, because you know these are people that are interested in a certain subject. They've taken the time to go to the conference, or they've taken the time to present at a conference. I believe these are absolute gold in terms of gathering names, gathering positions. Also association or trade groups, IEE or some of the other trade associations or trade groups that are out there. If you can find a list of members, again, those are gold, and they usually have a title, the company they work for, and a title. So all of these are go-to sources in my mind to try to find the proper person inside a company.
Before we move on, just a couple quick questions. Twitter, Facebook, as you pointed out, you could spend your entire day doing nothing but chasing different social media. So do
Right.
you wind up checking, do you figure out which ones are the best for your customers, or how do you keep it from dominating your life?
I don't use them a whole lot. Twitter and Facebook. Again, some of the times you go down a rabbit hole and you don't come out for a couple hours, and I don't feel they're necessarily the best use of my time, but they're certainly sources of information.
So you're susceptible to funny cat photos, are you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You go down the rabbit hole.
And another hopefully quick question is, so these conferences and trade shows, I assume that you're mostly when you attend, do you attend them or do you just get the books afterwards, the lists afterwards?
I'm looking at lists. Certainly you can go to conferences, and that's something that that's certainly a way to meet people is at conferences, trade shows, whatever the case may be. But in terms of finding people inside an organization, the attendee list or the presenter list to me is what's golden.
Plus, it's a lot more efficient, I guess, than spending a lot of money and standing on your feet for 3 days.
That is true, and hoping you catch them in a booth.
Yeah, so if you were to do that, would you recommend actually having a booth for your technology and showing off your demo? Is that a worthwhile use of resources?
It can be, again, in terms of looking for Mr. and Mrs. Right, you're
Well,
leaving
fair
it up
enough.
to,
Yeah.
right, you're leaving it up to them to walk by and hopefully see you and hopefully stop. So I think maybe that's a little off target for this presentation. But yeah, this certainly, conventions are a great way to meet people.
Yeah, you know me. I just want to get more out of you than we have time
I
for.
understand. I understand. So I'm ready for the next one. There you go, cold calling, which sends terror into many people. Cold calling does not send terror into me, but fear of rejection is a big thing for people, and ranks up there with one of their great fears in life is fear of rejection. Uh, First of all, let me define cold calling. I recently posted something on LinkedIn and ignited a storm because all sorts of people have cute names for cold calling now. Uh, Cold calling to me is just the solicitation of business from potential customers who have had no prior contact with the salesperson conducting the call. Therefore, the call is cold. That's a very simple definition. In the discussion on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn and one of the groups that I presented 3 snippets for cold calling, a series called 3 snippets for cold calling. It People said all sorts of things like, well, if you find names off of LinkedIn, then it's not a cold call, it's a warm call. And I guess certainly you could make an argument for that. But to me, it's still the person doesn't know you. If they don't know you, it's cold.
Yeah, totally.
Uh, so even though you may know them, you may know their children's birthdays, you may know everything, it's still a cold call to me because they don't know you. Uh, so that is what I'm looking at is cold calling. And again, I don't think it has to strike terror. It may not be your forte, but it can be done. And so we'll look at a few ways to do that. On to the next slide. Again, getting past the gatekeeper. Uh, these people can be so helpful to you if you are nice to them. I don't know how many receptionists, how many administration people, admins have said, no, that isn't Mr. Smith's responsibility, that's Mr. Jones or Ms. Jones' responsibility. They've just been a tremendous help to me, so I never see them as blocking the gate. I see them as opening the gate for me and hopefully opening the proper gate. So I wanted to put that one more time up as a standalone slide. So
I,
the next slide, if you would.
I always like them because they were that you could also get something about the politics of the situation if you got close enough to them.
Sure. Yeah, they'll tell you anything you want to know. Also, engineers a lot of times in a company will tell me stuff that maybe their VP of engineering doesn't want everybody to know, but a staff engineer could tell me things. One other thing I had to bring up here in terms of, since again I'm talking mainly phone calling with people, is it really pays to have a good phone, or if you have a headset, it pays to have a good headset. Uh, and I understand convenience, but a cell phone may not always be the best phone in the world. So I'm very aware of that. I do a lot of my stuff off of landlines. I've been in cellular for 29 years around cellular. I understand cellular inside and out. Uh, Nothing beats a landline. And so it is something to consider. You might have somebody tell you how you sound on the other end when you're talking. Is it echoey? I had one person I dealt with that they were in a stone room with 12-foot ceilings. It sounded like they were in a cavern every time I talked to them. And it was very hard to listen to them because of the echo and the depth of the place. It sounded like they were just in a massive, massive room, and it wasn't. It was just all stone. There was nothing to absorb the sound. It was just bouncing all over. So that is certainly something to consider, and I would also suggest you talk clearly. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten messages from a mumble mouth that I have no idea what their phone number is or what their name is. And without caller ID, I would be at a loss to try to get back with them. So if you're going to spend the time, you might as well talk clearly. All right, so on to random dialing. If you understand how phone numbers are set up in corporations, you used to buy blocks of numbers. So if you were setting up a 10-person office or a 50-person office, you would buy 555-1200. And so if you know that's the exchange, and then every phone in there would be 1201, 1203, 1204, 1205. That's the way phones used to be set up. It's not always that way now. But so it never hurts to random dial. If you know what the corporate phone number is, hit one number above it, hit one number below it. See if that gets you in. If you're having trouble getting past the receptionist, sometimes receptionists will throw down roadblocks that if you don't know a name, or if you don't know a position, if you don't know something, they can throw a roadblock that you may have to try to swerve around. So I random dial at times, or some companies have automated receptionists that you cannot get by unless you know the extension of that person. So again, try going one up, one down, try going two up, two down, four up, four down. Try randomly, see if that gets you into the corporation you're trying to get into. Another way is to get a fellow worker to transfer you. I used this just the other day. I was trying to open a discussion with Pandora. And Pandora has two phone numbers listed. One is in New York, one is in the Bay Area. The New York one is totally automated. Unless you know who you're going for and their extension of the person you're trying to talk to, you're locked out. You cannot get in. But they're nice enough to tell me in their recording that if you know the 4-digit extension of the person, please dial it now. So I know they're 4 digits. Believe me, telephone people are not that creative, the installers. So why not try 1004, 1007, 1008? Try some random numbers, and and again, the Pandora example, I got in, I dialed 1008, talked to that person, said I was trying to get, I don't remember who I was trying to get, Susie, and that person said, well, Susie doesn't work at this office, and hung up. So I just went back in and dialed 1009. I got in touch with a person that was very helpful to me, gave me Susie's extension, and transferred me to Susie. So I was on the phone with Susie by just plunking around while I was in the neighborhood. Another way is many automated systems say if you want sales, do punch 1. If you want parts, punch 2. If you want engineering, punch 3. If you want accounting, punch 4. I'll punch accounting. They're usually at their offices. They usually answer the phone, and I say, I'm trying to get to Susie. Can you transfer me, please? So they'll get me into Susie, and I will many times Susie's voicemail if she's not at her desk, if that's who I'm trying to get to. If she's not at her desk, her phone message will say, this is Susie at extension 1403. Please leave a message. So now I have her number. Next time I dial in, I've got her exact extension. Obviously, name search in a phone directory systems I love. But many top people sometimes don't show up in phone directories so that you cannot dial directly into them. So, but it's a great place, a great way to get into the people that you're trying to get into. Another thing is try different times of the day. If an administrative assistant is blocking the way for me, I'll call it 7 a.m. I'll call it noon, lunchtime. I'll call it 6 p.m. They may not be there at those hours, and it goes directly through. So I swerve around them. If I cannot go with them and get by using their talents and ability, then I will swerve around. And also be aware of different work habits of different parts of the country. Many times on the East Coast, you can catch somebody in their office at 7 or 8 p.m. Many times on the West Coast, everybody vacates at 5 o'clock. So be aware of those things. All right, I think I am ready for the next one. And that is your pitch. So you've gotten by, now you need to start your pitch. And a whole seminar can be done on an elevator pitch, and I just posted something. I'm starting a series on my LinkedIn page talking about elevator pitches. And I know Linda can probably talk for an entire day on elevator pitches.
Just a day?
Well, if you talk fast. So the one thing I do is once I get to the person I'm trying to contact, I allow them to opt in or opt out. And again, I've brought this up before on some of my LinkedIn discussions, and some people say, oh, I never allow them to say yes or no. I just go right into my pitch. That may work for some people. For me, I just say, I tell them who I am, who the company is, and ask if they have a moment. And then I respect that. I don't take 40 minutes of their time if I just ask for a moment. But from my experience, many people's office phones are forwarded to their cell phones, and therefore if you're trying to contact them, you may contact them, but they may be right in the middle of rush hour, they may be standing in line at Starbucks, they may be eating lunch, they may be going to the bathroom. So you really might want to find out, or even if you catch them in their office, they might be looking at starting a conference call in 1 minute. That's why they were in their office. So I always, and again, this is personal preference, I always ask, do you have a moment, or is there, and if not, is there a better time? Then obviously when I call back, I reference that better time. Susie, you suggested I contact you today at 9 o'clock. Do you have a moment now? Very easy, very simple, very polite. So I think
And by
you have
that
something,
time,
Lena?
yeah, and by that time, it's not exactly a cold call anymore, right?
Well, at
Because you've
least,
kind of had
yeah,
that
you're
interaction.
right. You try, and I always phrase the question so the answer is, I'm trying to get them saying yes. So I don't say, is there a better time to call you? I say, may I have a moment? So the answer is yes. Yes or no, but yes is what I'm trying to get. So when you phrase your question, you may want to try to get a yes. That gets them very used to saying yes. I also use a conversational tone, not a preachy tone, and I don't rush it. It isn't that the building's on fire, and I know you may have tried, I've tried for 6 months to get somebody, and I finally get them on the phone. The thing I cannot do is sound rushed, uh, that, my life depends on this. My livelihood may depend on it, but my life does not. So the basics, I always try to get in as fast as possible. Who am I? Who am I? Who's the company? What's the product? And how will the product change their life? That's always included in my elevator pitch. Again, Linda could talk for at least a day on elevator pitches.
Yeah, but
But
that's how I start virtually. I would switch how will it change their life with what is the product. But other than that, that's exactly how I start mine. So
correct,
100% in
correct.
accord.
Yep. So again, these are the basics you have to get in. You can do it in any form or fashion you want, but I think these have to be in anything you do. Yeah, if you're building an octopus, at least you have to have these three legs. And also you have to be able to target your pitch for the audience. If you're leaving a message with the receptionist, you really need to distill it down to 3 or 5 words. If you're leaving it with an admin, an administrative assistant, your explanation could be a little longer, and certainly if you hit the target person, your pitch could be a little longer. To me, the perfect elevator pitch is between 15 and 60 seconds. I usually try 15 to 30. But many times some people go up to 60 seconds. Um, and to get as much in as you can, to choose your words, to use words succinctly to say what you're trying to convey is what an elevator pitch is. Obviously, the term refers to if you're trapped in an elevator with the person you're looking for and you have 2 floors or 3 floors to tell them what you do and get their attention, how do you do that? And so those are very, very important things to have in your presentation. Uh, so the next thing then is with an elevator pitch, you are always trying to get them to say either mentally or out loud, tell me more. That means you've conveyed enough to pique their interest, and that is all you're trying to do with an elevator pitch. Then you can determine if you tell them more right now or if you tell them more in the future at a pre-scheduled call in the future. Again, the executive that's getting ready to run out of their office for a conference call, the tell me more may have to occur later that day or the next day, but you want to get them to that place, and that is all an elevator pitch is designed to do, in my opinion, is to say, tell me more. And once they say that, then they've definitely opted into your conversation and want to hear more. The best example I know of Tell Me More is a short little novel that just says, for sale, baby shoes never worn. That's the novel. Uh, I think that leaves it with, whoa, where'd the baby shoes? How come they were never worn? What's this? What's that? So it piques the interest and gets you to say, tell me more.
Wow.
Uh, I always request an action from them after I've made the pitch, uh, and that is whatever you want them to do. What are you trying to get them to do? Are you just trying to get them to listen, or are you trying to get them to talk to their people in their organization about this? Are you getting them to review it? Do you want them to look at an email you're sending them, look at a presentation that will follow? What are you trying to get them to do? And if the person is the wrong person. You finally get in front of them, you make your pitch, and they go, I'm sorry, that's not in my department, that's not my responsibility, then I always ask for a referral to the correct person. Again, when you go in with a name, Sam Smith suggested I call you, Susie Watson suggested I speak with you, you're way ahead of the game. All right, Linda, ready for the next one? So follow up. If you do not follow up, all your time up to this is just wasted. And many times this is the hardest thing for people to do, is to follow up. They feel uncomfortable calling that person back and going, Susie, I sent this information to you a few days ago. Have you had time to review it? If so, what is the next step? How can we move forward? Those are all just very simple questions uh, that you have to be aware of and have to plan to do. So one other thing I would say about cold calling, you have to, and back to the previous slide, if somebody says no to you, well, it comes up. No, forget it. It comes up in 2 slides away. So go ahead, back, and one more forward. Again, as that slide said, you're trying to build a relationship. If you end up selling a product or getting this person as an investor, it's a relationship. It's not just a sale. It's not just okay, I got them, but you want to keep them ideally. And so during the call, I always state a plan. Okay, as soon as we get off the call, I will send you an email that summarizes what we spoke about and gives a PowerPoint presentation on our company, a link to our website, a link to a video about our company. I always tell them what to expect from me, and I always do it. When I'm talking with these people, I take very good notes. The time, the date, the subject, the outcome, next steps, personal information. If they happen to tell me they just returned from their daughter's graduation, that's all very good information for me that I can bring up maybe sometime in the future. What's your daughter doing now that she's graduated? Or they went to a preschool graduation or a kindergarten graduation. All of those things are helpful to me and help build a relationship. And there's tons of text sites that can work to do this: Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheets, Zoho, Salesforce, all sorts of different things. So you pick what works for you. In some respects, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I still write a lot of notes. I handwrite them only because I found out over the years that for some reason my handwriting is connected to my brain and I remember it. If I type it, I seem to be more like a third person. It just does not lodge in my brain like it does if I write it down. One thing I also always have are emails prepared that summarize what I am discussing with people, and then I personalize the first paragraph and the last paragraph to reference anything specific that we talked about on the phone call. But the meat of the email is always the same. That means after I talk with Susie or Sam, I can have an email in their inbox usually within 10 or 15 minutes or a half hour at most. And one thing I always do in the subject line, I make sure I have the company name. If they're trying to sort through their emails, and I don't know what your inbox looks like, but if you're trying to sort through emails, it's certainly helpful if the person that sends you information gives you a way to retrieve that information, and many times that's a company name. And I usually reference somewhere in the subject line that it's a phone conversation follow-up that shows them that it's not a cold email from someone they don't know, but it's a follow-up on a phone conversation that they had. And then again, I put a dash and the company that I'm working for. I find that very helpful, that they can, and in that, again, I give them as much information as I can, realizing that people don't read over a page or two. If you can't give them a book, you need to still keep it rather brief. So that's the way I do it. And you really have to take control after the call. I don't sit around. If they say they will review the information and look at it and get back with me with I will ask them, if I don't hear from you in 3 days, may I circle back with you? Or if they say they're going to call me in a week, I give them that week, but on the 8th day, I'm calling them because they said they'd review it within a week. So take control. Don't just sit and wait for your phone to ring. Take control. I always try to get to a rapid yes or a rapid no. And one thing, this is what I was going to say about the word no. If someone gives you a no, it's not a rejection of you as a person. It's not a threat to your family. It's not a threat to your business. It's just a statement of disinterest at the current time. The reason I say it that way is no today may be yes tomorrow. People that said no to Google at one time probably, upon reviewing it and seeing Google's success, may have gone back to them and said, oh, yes, I am interested in learning more about you. So no is not a rejection of you. It is simply just a statement of disinterest at the current time. So don't let it crater you. Don't let it ruin your day. Some people, maybe if you have 3 or 4 no's in a row, then yeah, maybe take a break, go do something else. If you hit a dead end, if you cannot get in the company the way you're trying to get into it, pick another person and try it a different way. There's 50 different ways into companies. I've told Linda over the years, and I truly believe this, I don't think there's a company in the world that I cannot get into. And it just sometimes takes me some time, but I can get into it, and I can usually find the person that needs to review it, review the product at any point in time. So that is it. It's persistent. You're persistent but not obnoxious, which means you probably shouldn't call and leave a message every day. Many times when I call back in, I don't leave a message every time. I'm not trying to fill up their inbox. I don't get paid to fill up their inbox. I get paid to contact them to build a relationship and to make the sale. So stay at it regularly and keep track of that again in the notes so you know what was last discussed. There's nothing worse than calling somebody today, them saying, okay, give me a month, I need to run it up the flagpole, and you turn around because of bad note taking and call them the next day. And they have to remind you, you called me yesterday, I asked for a month. So keep your notes, stay at it regularly, and you will find the people that you're looking for. So if we go to the next slide, for all of you that are on the phone call right now, I would offer a half-hour consult for the first 10 applicants, and I'm sorry, out of all of you, I can only take 10. But I'm always interested in startups and what they're doing and helping them try to get to market. That to me is enjoyable. So if you would like that, please feel free to use this email address that's listed there on Bitly. And there's some information that's requested just to it helps kind of splash my mind with what direction you're headed. So
So before we, so while let's just leave that up there so people can write it, but we have a couple of questions for you, if you wouldn't mind doing a little bit of a free consult right now.
I can do that.
Let's see if I can get Eva unmuted. Eva, hello.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much for your conference. It was very, very inspiring and very insightful. Thank you, Dr. Mr. Robert Belt, for your presentation. So my question regarding partnership with business development partners. So the question is, if I find after I finish developing my idea, implementing my idea, and if I find a business development director, what is the usual amount of shares that we give to a business development director?
Linda, do you want to handle that? That's kind of more in your field.
Yeah, I guess that it is. Right. Well, there's no good answer to that, or the answer to it is yes. It really depends on what it is, how much value they're bringing into it. The way that it's usually thought about is to set up milestones that have to be achieved, and a certain amount of stock or stock options will vest as each of these milestones is accomplished. But exactly how much is going to depend entirely on how much experience they have. You know, you would give somebody like Robert a lot bigger share than somebody who had, you know, majored in marketing or something in business school and just got finished with his MBA. So having the Rolodex in your particular industry is particularly valuable, but as Robert has pointed out, if you get someone like him who can get into pretty much any company, that's equally valuable. So be prepared to pay for quality. If you don't have the ability to attract somebody with the amount of shares that you have, then I'd say then it's going to take a lot of cash, and you're probably going to need to raise money to attract them. So be thoughtful about the amount of shares that you'd be willing to part with, because a biz dev person can make all the difference in the world. You had another question as well about when to approach a partner.
Yes. Do you want me to ask the question?
Sure. I mean, well,
Okay.
did I answer the question you were just at well enough?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you so much. Of course, I would be happy to know what are the milestones for, because what I'm looking for is what a business development director has to achieve usually. I don't know if you have like documents or if you can advise on this.
Robert, well, what I would say is what you're looking for is a number of customers signed or sold to, or partner contracts signed. But I don't know what your business is, so I really say more specifically. Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, it all depends what stage you're in. If you go back to what we did together,
You
Linda,
couldn't get earlier than that.
it probably at that point in time, the first milestone might have been to get X number of meetings. So out of 20 clients in the world, with 19 of them being in the U.S. or having U.S. Offices, you know, getting appointments with them, because certainly what we were selling at that time was kind of a long lead item, and so if you put some of the bonuses or vesting that far out, that was a 1 or 2 year sales cycle. So again, it depends on the product, what you're trying to sell. But so you could certainly have the first milestone be X number of appointments in the first 6 months, then X number of sales. So far out. Again, there's so many ways to look at it depending on the industry. I don't know if there's an easy answer to that one.
Okay, thank you so much. This is very helpful for me.
Good.
Thank you for your answer. My second question is regarding it's about approaching a big prospective partner for a startup that is at a very early stage. For example, let's say I have an idea that I think it's great, and I'm in the process of implementing the idea and testing it. So I work very hard. I work slow because of my means and resources. And my question is, do I have to approach a big prospective partner at before I finish implementing my idea if my plan is very clear, or do I have to wait until I finish implementing my idea before approaching a big partner who can accelerate the process of finalizing the implementation of my idea?
Do you want to take that first, Linda?
Sure. So in the ideal world, you would have implemented it and at least have a demo. Because especially for a partner, they're going to want to know that you're for real. The biggest fear for most big established companies, not even big companies, but most established companies of working with a startup is that your technology may never work, so they'll have lost a bunch of resources, time, energy, money, staff, in order to prove out a technology that never had a chance of surviving. And the other big fear is that a year from now, you're not going to exist anymore. So they've also gone and wasted a bunch of money and time. So the more you can show that you have taken the risk out of it, the better off you're going to be. Now, that's not always feasible. And so your next best option, and actually going back to when Robert and I were working together doing this, we were using Diamond as a very high quality filter for the front end of cell phones. And when we started, we were mostly talking ideas, and I think towards the end, pretty sure towards the end, we had a data from Motorola actually that showed that we were just phenomenally better, at least on the proof of concept stage, we were phenomenally better than any of the competition. And that certainly made it easier for us to be taken seriously. But still, for the big companies to look at that and say, well, that's a very nice science experiment. We actually manufacture hundreds of millions and millions of phones, so you're a long ways off. All of that said, if all you have is an idea and you need help in order to get your first prototype built, then you're kind of in a tough place. So you need to either be able to raise money from an angel or something like that to help you get to the proof of concept, or you need to find a business development partner, or a partner that will help you build this thing. I assume that's what you're looking for. But who is so desperate for your technology that it is worth the risk to them to get involved with you even at a very early stage.
Okay, thank you.
Something else I'd bring up along that line is also you may want to consider, if you notice plays that are on Broadway always start off Broadway. Baseball players, a lot of baseball players start in the minor leagues before they go to the major leagues. So as you're looking at your client list of who might be potential clients, many times it's good to get your learning with your minor league players or your off-Broadway players, and then when you're ready for it, take it to the big boys.
That's such a good point. I remember being in godforsaken nowhere, Pennsylvania with you at one point.
Yeah.
But what we were doing there was talking to research professors who had potentially some really big interest in it. And so that can be the minor leagues where you're talking mostly to technical people and helping them along, or to other small companies that are going to be super interested in moving forward. Or if you fall on your face, that it's not going to hurt you in the long term.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much for your answers. This is very, very helpful.
Well, good luck, Eva. Come back for the next one too.
Thank you. I'm sure I will come back.
Okay, that is all the written questions I have. If anyone else would like to ask a question, why don't you put your hand up? We're actually over time already, so it's okay if we need to get going, but take advantage, guys. Okay. Nathan?
Yeah,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for giving me a chance to ask. I might have sent an email to you on the same topic. Being a biochemist and now having undergone that program in startups, which really got me interested because I had my own ideas too, I decided first, based on what I had observed so far, that the failure rate of angel investing has been very high, unacceptably high. And so, it also came across to me very clearly by listening to all the presentations that was part of the program, that most of the emphasis, effort, and time were spent on the business plan, market survey, and then the first 2, 3, 4 years of timeline, achievements, profit, etc., which to me as a scientist was nothing more than in good earnest, smoke and mirrors, because they were not data. And it was done to the exclusion of rejecting almost the scientific robustness of the project on which the whole product depends, because these were all biotechnology or technology-based products. So my goal is to see if I could start a service where I would function as a scientific advisor or guide to look at the patent as well as the raw data, speak with the scientist, and assess how strong and robust the science is, and advise the angel investor, go ahead with this. No, this is yellow, so like reviewing a manuscript, we need more questions answered, or don't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. But I don't know if there will be a market for it. So how do I contact highly targeted angel investors so that I can send them a one-page questionnaire?
Actually, I can answer this one, which is do not pursue investors as a source of revenue. They do not like to pay for anything. Except for the companies. I'm quite serious about this. Right? It impacts their numbers. I have tried this approach without success as well. So, and that's doing something that's more directly involved with what their portfolio companies are doing. What you should do is go ahead with that one-page summary and offer to be available for due diligence. So rather than screening before they listen to the company, be involved as a consultant afterwards, and that they will pay you for. Just let them know. Okay?
And the places to start would be obviously former employers. A lot of people, you put in their 5, 10 years, and then as they're out of the company, get hired back in as consultants to do things like you just mentioned. That's certainly one place. Any old colleagues, again, they've been in the same business as you, so those are probably the first 2 places to start. And then from your knowledge of the industry, any of those companies that you may not have had contact with, but are in the same industry, making their services available.
Thank you both very much.
Absolutely. Okay, next we have Martha. Hello, Martha. Good to have you here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, here's my question. I was referred to the president of a company. I sent him an email. He said he'd be glad to talk to me in a week. I called him back, and I've called him back about 6 or 7 times, and he's never returned my call or my emails. So when do I give up, or how do I approach that? Since he showed initial interest.
Who referred you to him? How'd you get his name the first time?
I got his name through Mass High Tech. I knew the person who was running it. She referred me to the Chancellor of Continuing Education at UMass. He introduced me to the person that I was trying to get in touch with. So I had an introduction to the person.
Right. Could that person that gave you the introduction give their friend a tickler? Could they do it kind of on your behalf to say, I saw you, at Starbucks the other day, and she had mentioned that she'd been trying to contact you.
Uh-huh.
So certainly you can have somebody else poke them with a stick. It does become difficult. Many times people will say they are interested and their schedule just gets full. I don't know any nice way to say it. It's just
Yes.
in their listing of daily to-do lists, you're at the bottom.
So what you're suggesting is I shouldn't keep bombarding this person with phone calls and emails, but try to go through the original contact.
Yeah, see if the other person could poke them. And if you've been trying every week, maybe just kind of space it out to every 2 weeks or something so that you don't become a pest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unbelievable to me how many times I will follow up with people. They ask me to follow up. I follow up. I follow up. I follow up. No response, no response, no response. Finally, I get them on the phone, and it's like we're best friends. It's, well, where have you been for the last 6 months? Is the question I don't get to ask them. But yeah. So you just kind of figure out different ways to poke the lion.
Okay, I get it. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, do you have time for another one, Robert?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Links, you are on the air.
Hello, this is Lynx. I've enjoyed this so far. I am working on high-tech, high-function in the healthcare industry, and it's such a big animal to tame, and yet both of us have, 60 years experience, so I certainly know a lot about it. But how do you figure out that next step with contracts or with purchase orders that I have, but then I'm not able to do that next piece of follow-up and bring together the people in the healthcare situation or the system and the people within another like manufacturing or the high-tech industry here at MIT. So I'm curious, are there venues that you would recommend or that you would think I should host that would help me with that process?
Is this a sourcing question, Linda?
I'm sorry, I was answering somebody else's question offline. I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I can re-ask it. I'm curious how to do the follow-up piece, or besides just the phone calls, are there other avenues, whether to host an event, to bring the team together, or other avenues for follow-up?
All right, yes, Robert, I'm sure you've got some better ideas on this, but unless you have something that, remember what Robert said about the pitch. You have to pitch something that is really critical in their lives,
Right.
not in yours. So if you can really bear down on that, figure out, really define what that is, and put on an event that's around that particular,
Okay.
the solution for that, you might get them to. Remember, if you ask them to come to an event, they have to schedule it, they have to travel. It's a much higher much higher degree of difficulty than getting them to answer the phone or having you come to see them. So I would not put a lot of effort into that unless, again, you have a really killer app for an important problem.
Okay.
Robert?
Again, I love to take control, so I would rather keep the ball in my court and try to go see them, try to do a presentation for them, do a screen share on my computer with them, anything as opposed to putting all the effort into setting up an event and then they don't show up. Because,
Okay.
where do you go from there? You're back where you were anyway.
Right. I was thinking of an event at their facility, in their hospital. They're asking for certain things from me, but I want something from them as well that's a little different.
Right, right. Well, you can certainly do that. I mean, I've set up before in lunchrooms where they want multiple people to see an application or a piece of hardware, whatever the case may be. Uh, I have done that, and then they just pump the word out that from noon to 1, there will be a demonstration, a drop-in demonstration of the latest, greatest of this product.
Okay, thank you.
I would totally agree with that. I guess I missed that. Sorry about that. It's hard to keep track of all the questions and the hands being raised and everything and listen at the same time. So my apologies. But yeah, the other way to think about it, or similarly, is if they've asked you to come and give a presentation, jump all over that sucker.
Okay.
Make sure that you answer really do a tight, great presentation on what it is that they care about, but make sure you tie it in and make your ask at the end. We've talked about this particular problem. Here are the different kinds of solutions. And of course, we're working on one of those solutions as well. And, it's got some real benefits over the others. So if you'd like to hear more about that, I'd love to set up another meeting with you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, well, I guess I should have shown this all along. I'll leave this up for a moment or two if you want to get his contact information. Robert's, although actually you could download the slides. If any of you had trouble with it, Connie finally found them under the dock symbol on your toolbar, so take a look for that. If you're local and don't have mentors or want to expand on your mentors, please come on to the Mentor Smart program. A couple of the people you heard asking questions today are mentees, and they obviously come back for more, and we're obviously very responsive since we created this whole program for you. There's the information on what not to patent, and with all of that, my name is Linda Plano. I am a pitch and venture development coach. It is my pleasure to bring these kinds of programs to you. Robert, thank you so much. That was a truly excellent presentation that I think every entrepreneur should listen to.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
With that, signing off. Have a fabulous rest of the day, everybody.